think we can start now, no?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go over a couple of things. Hello and welcome to Perga, Greece 2.0. My name is Alexandra Metaxas, Director of the Hellenic-American Chamber of Commerce, and I will be going over some Zoom etiquette today for you. Kindly mute all your microphones during the presentation. If something tragic arises, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, please add all questions to the chat box, and the speakers will try to answer as many as they can at the end of the presentation. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our new president at the Chamber, Athas Ioannou. Enjoy.
Thank you, Alexandra. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Athas Ioannou, and thank you for joining the event today. As we all know, the tech industry has changed the world in fundamental and dramatic ways over the last 15 to 20 years, permeating almost every aspect of social and economic life. As time passes, tech becomes a larger part of almost every national economy. And this is true for Greece as well. For the past 50 years or so, the academic culture in Greece has focused heavily on math and science, making it fertile ground for the tech industry. So HACC created this event, and hopefully will become a series of events to explore the industry's push into Greece. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Consul General of Greece in New York, Dr. Konstantinos Koutras.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Athas, and congratulations for your new term.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My dear friends, thank you very much for the invitation. When investors look for advice, last place they usually search for it are the governments. Let me try to change this perception, because something is changing in Greece, and it is changing for the better. The pandemic has, of course, given a whole new meaning to the concept of change globally, but let us focus on the case of Greece. The Greek growth plan, a framework which is very important. This plan, already approved and publicly acclaimed by the EU institutions, is based on 4 pillars. First, private investment and economic reforms. Second, digital transformation. Third, Greek transition. Fourth, social cohesion and employment. And if 2.0 means upgrading a system in the IT sector, then we certainly need to engineer growth in a way that serves our needs better and longer. The reason behind these 4 pillars of the plan I mentioned is self-evident. Without sustainability and coherence, growth will stop. Like every self-respecting engineer, the people behind the Greek Recovery and Resilience Plan do have their own toolkit. And allow me to say that the Greek plan will be largely supported by technology and private investment. These are the 2 factors which Greece, let's be honest between us, has not used in an optimum way to achieve multiplier effects up to date. Taking the pillars one by one, economic reform will focus on making taxes more growth-friendly and improving tax administration and tax collection. Moreover, we are going to further modernize the public administration, speed up the implementation of public investments, and improve the public procurement framework. This plan prioritizes the strengthening of capital markets and improving the resilience of key economic sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, exports and FDI will be the pillars of development for the years to come. Private investment, of course, again, will be based on important infrastructure projects, such as, just to mention a few, the northern part of the A65, you know about it, major irrigation projects, the modernization of the railway network, smart infrastructure, etc., and so on, so many other things. This plan incorporates investment priorities for the strengthening of our traditional assets as well, such as culture and tourism. including the development of cultural and natural routes, investment in alternate types of tourism, and special training programs to upgrade the skills of the human resources of tourism business. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next 6 years, Greece will have received something close to $60 billion, approximately 10 billion per year, even more. Half of it will come directly from the European Union's Recovery Fund, designed to boost European recovery. This fund is endowed with roughly $1 trillion, and it is the largest stimulus package ever financed through the European Union. It is also a giant political step towards European integration, but that is another story, linked, however, to what we discussed today. So, to cut the long story short, the money is there, and all we need to do is spend it wisely, as the Prime Minister has already said. Digital transformation is of paramount importance. This plan includes, inter alia, installation of fiber optic infrastructure in buildings, development of 5G network corridors on Greek highways, connection of the mainland with modern underwater fiber optic cables with the Greek islands, and digitization of key files in various sectors: health, justice, town planning, land registry, immigration, etc. The third pillar of this plan is green transition. Our energy mix must change. The Prime Minister has already mentioned that explicitly. And of course, it has to turn itself into something smarter and less polluting. This does necessarily mean costlier, at least not in the long run. This plan includes an extensive program of energy efficiency and economy for households, businesses, public buildings, and infrastructure. Furthermore, it is focused on the promotion of renewable energy sources and large investments on irrigation networks and water management. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, to make our machines smarter, we must first make our humans more competent. Education will undoubtedly play a key role in that sector. Vocation and education can be two different things working in harmony. There is a huge discussion around this issue, so let's just say that one does not preclude the other. Looking at last at the fourth pillar, which is social coherence, we understand the complexity of this challenge. Making a system effective is the easy part. It is almost like building a robot. Make it socially functional is the difficult part. It is like creating a robot with feelings. In my opinion, striking a balance between the economic and social dimension will be the touching stone for the societies of the future. Globalization already makes the issue more pressing and more puzzling for our policymakers. Nevertheless, difficult does not mean impossible. We just need to implement Greece 2.0 methodically. If well implemented, this growth plan is set to create 200,000 jobs and 7% of GDP growth. Attracting foreign direct investment is the mandate on which the current Greek government was elected, and top US companies not only discussed investing in Greece, but they have already done so. Let me give you some examples. Microsoft is setting a data center in mainland Greece. Amazon Web Services has signed a memorandum with the Greek government in order to promote innovation and digital infrastructure. Onyx is already investing in the Greek shipyards. Tesla is about to expand its network in Greece. General Electric is active in renewables. So, some other major investments for the pharmaceutical cannabis sector from US company. I think that you might have heard all this in the past. You may have heard us also many times, but this time you are not hearing empty words. This time we mean business. The opportunities, ladies and gentlemen, are there. The human capital is there. The money is there. Major investors are already there. The time for a Greek success story has come. Please don't miss this opportunity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Consul General, thank you very much for those words. That's very exciting, and we look forward to developing that, helping to developing that, and being by your side as it develops. I'd like to also say that this event was created in conjunction with the Hellenic Innovative Network and the MIT Enterprise Forum, and they've been great partners, and we really look forward to collaborating with them in the future on future events. And so I'd like to thank them very much. And I'd like to introduce now our moderator from WCBS, Mr. John Metaxas.
Thank you, Athos, for the introduction and for inviting me. I'd like to thank the Hellenic-American Chamber of Commerce and Hellenic Innovation Network and MIT Enterprise Forum for having me be here, and Alexandra, Vasily, and Anthony, and everybody who worked so hard on this program. I'm really looking forward to learning more about the idea of Greece as a technology hub, or Greece 2.0, if you will. It's an exciting topic for me, both as a journalist, much of my career has been as a financial journalist, but also as a former C-suite executive at E-Trade 20 years ago, where we were making efforts to leverage what was then still a young digital technology for media and financial services. So this is a subject that is very much in my blood. And what I would really like to learn and hope to learn from this is the idea of Greece as a technology hub. How much of that is still aspirational and how much of that is real? And I think our panelists will be able to shed light on that. We have a very distinguished panel. Nico Gariboldi, the site lead and global digital of the technology hub at Pfizer, senior director there as well. Marina Hatsopoulos, chairwoman of the Hellenic Innovation Network, an entrepreneur, investor, and author. And Yorgos Koutras, vice president of engineering at Ansys. He grew his company Helic from a university spinoff to one of the largest tech acquisitions of Greece. It's a terrific panel. We'd like to open up with opening statements from each of our panelists, short ones, and then we'll launch into the questions. So Nico Gariboldi, if we can start with you, that'd be great. Let me quickly read a little bit more about you. He started his career in Pfizer, Italy, 16 years ago, serving as brand manager of Perry-Lowe Products, commercial effectiveness manager, business intelligence advisor, supply policy specialist, and junior analyst. He has since held roles of increasing local, regional, and global responsibility. Most recently, Nico was global capability lead for the healthcare provider Portal Experience within the customer experience team. And prior to that was senior director, global lead for customer engagement and content strategy for Pfizer Essential Health. In that role, he managed the team responsible for creating enterprise customer engagement strategies that supported commercial, scientific, and business goals based on an omni-channel approach and content marketing strategy. Nico earned his Bachelor of Business Administration degree from La Sapienza University in Rome. And Nico, we're very eager to hear from you, and also perhaps each of our panelists could maybe even address perhaps in their opening remarks or later, why Greece? Why is your company involved with Greece? Nico.
Thank you so much, John, for your introduction, and thank you to all of you for this invitation. It's really an honor for me being here with all of you. So first of all, I would say why Greece is one of the questions that I received more since the moment that I came here, more or less 13 months ago, because this project started really with the start of the pandemic last year. I think that for the reason that you were mentioned so before, because for sure one of the biggest reason was the talent pool. So the human capital. So this was one of the reasons why we selected Greece and specifically here in Thessaloniki, because there is a very good talent pool for digital capabilities. So I would say at entry level, but also at senior level, because the other thing that also we made in our evaluation was also the fact that you have a very good tech park, tech domain, I would say, situation here in Greece, because as also mentioned before, there are a lot of other companies that are investing here. So this is also good, I would say, from this perspective. The other component that was really influencing our choice of being here in Greece was also the strategy that the government, that the authorities are doing. So they are supporting these foreign investments. They are creating a strong digital national strategy. So all these factors in some way pushed us to select this Greece as a place for being. And also the time zone was critical for us, because Greece is in the middle of West and East. As we are a global digital and technology hub, the colleagues are working with global projects of innovation and technology across the world. So this was also one of the reasons. And lastly, also one thing that I'm really proud is the big ecosystem that you have here. So in our plan for innovation, we are really looking forward to collaborating with the startup environment, with incubators, with the universities. So we already are working with Aristotle University and TUA for making, for sure, collaboration for human capital and also for innovation. And also the institution, it's another very important, I would say, stakeholders for our ecosystem approach. So I would say all these reasons together made our choice, our business case for being here in Greece, and in particular in Thessaloniki, for our global digital and technology hub. You're on mute.
I see I'm muted. How do you like Thessaloniki as a global city, a global headquarters, if you will?
I would say it's a great city. So for me, I would say personally it's great because I'm Italian. So I would say the relocation for me, it was in some way easy, but also it's the multicultural aspect also of this city that is supporting also our approach. So people really have a strong also propension to work globally with different cultures, mindset. I would say it's really working very well. Consider that we started more or less on March last year, so even April, and now we are already 250 people. So we hired all these young and also, I would say, senior talents in our hub, and we are really experiencing that the choice that we made for being here was really good. So this is really something that is working very well. And also the feedback that we are receiving from global Pfizer, the headquarters, about the people that are working with them are really, really good, about capabilities and profession of working in a global organization.
All right. Thank you, Nico. One of the great things about being a journalist is you get to ask people questions and you never know what the answers are going to be. And I must admit, in asking the question about why Greece, I never would have thought of the answer of the time zone being one of the factors. So thank you for telling me something that I had no idea about previously. Let's move on to our next panelist, Dr. Yorgos Koutsoyanopoulos. He's Vice President of R&D at Ansys, the global leader of pervasive simulation technologies, member of the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100. Based in San Jose, California, Yorgos is in charge of Ansys Global Semiconductor Electromagnetic Solutions, developed by a world-class group of scientists in Athens. Prior to Ansys and since 2000, Yorgos led as CEO Helic Inc., a simulation software company that won as customers 15 of the top 20 global semiconductor players for multiple years. Helic was a pioneer high-tech startup, the first to raise venture capital financing in Greece, successfully acquired by Ansys in January of 2019. Yorgos earned both his diploma and PhD in electrical and computer engineering from the NTUA in 1995 and 1999, respectively, and he's attended executive courses in Harvard and London business schools in leadership and marketing. And Dr. Yorgos, welcome to the panel from Silicon Valley to Greece. I'm sure you have quite a story to tell us.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. So where would you like me to start?
Well, how is it that you became an investor in Greece, and how did you form your company?
The simple answer is that there is untapped world-class talent that is still in abundance. The supply of talent in Greece is amazing, and this is the main reason why we invest, and we will keep investing in our R&D presence in Greece. That's the simple answer. Now, there are many aspects, of course, being a Greek and being born and raised in Athens. And I'm also, someone who grew up in the Greek academic ecosystem. I have a more intimate knowledge of what are Greeks capable of. So that gives me some additional bias. But as I try to distance myself and make a judgment call, looking globally for scarce talent that we try to source, definitely Greece is one of our best options right now. And as I said, I do admit my bias, but as I look at data, as I look at reports and global analysis that we're going through, Greece is an amazing option right now. And for companies like Ansys, where we have very strict requirements and very high expectations from our employees, engineers, and scientists, if we are looking at the the top 5, top 10% of the talent available, this is where we can find that in the quantities and the quality that we want.
And what are the operations that your company has in Greece right now?
It's mostly core R&D, research and development. So we develop a good part of our products portfolio, and we also have members of what we call engineering customer support team. This is a very interesting part of the organization. They practically interface our customers on a daily basis. During the pandemic, of course, that was mostly through web interfaces remotely. But before the pandemic, these folks were regularly on a plane across the globe. They were covering multiple time zones, ranging from the east part of China all the way to the west coast of the United States.
So this is very high level work. It almost belies the narrative of an emerging market country where they try to leverage the low wages of their workers to generate economic activity. This is the opposite of that.
Exactly the opposite. And I'm a strong believer of that. I'm totally against the idea that we have low wages in Greece, and that's the reason why anyone should go there. First of all, it's not true anymore. There is significant competition, as Nico pointed out earlier. There are a lot of companies that are either in the process of investing in Greece, or they have already made some initial investment. So there is presence of multinationals in Greece. This has created some level of competition in the labor market. So salaries are not where they were maybe 5 years ago. Definitely they're not where they were 10 years ago. So it's not the, let's say, the cheap place where you would go in and get talent for free. No, that's not true. But in general, I'm totally against that idea as a development, as a growth model for the country, because this is not what the country has. The country has talent. Now, the high unemployment has pushed salaries extremely low, and this is the major reason why salaries have been on a comparable basis, on a relative basis, have been lower compared to the EU average for the same kind of skill set.
Thank you, Yorgos. We will be opening up the panel to questions from the audience through the chat function, and I hope to leave enough time to get to a few of those at the end. But let's now take a look at the investor's perspective. And our next panelist is Marina Hatsopoulos, founding CEO of Z Corporation, an early market leader in 3D printing out of MIT from 1994 through its sale in 2005 when it reached $30 million in revenues. She is board chair of Levitronics Technologies, the worldwide leader in magnetically levitated bearingless motor technology, and president of Hellenic Innovation Network. She is a member of the National Board of Research and Innovation for the Republic of Cyprus. She's on the MIT Corporation Visiting Committee for the Department of Mechanical Engineering. She's on the advisory board of the Nantucket Conference, MIT Enterprise Forum Greece, Eurobank's EGG Incubator, Mindspace Startup Program, and the OKTHES Accelerator in Greece. She was a director of Cynosure Inc., a $400 million leader in the laser aesthetics market, the GSI Group, a $300 million supplier of laser-based equipment and Context Holding, a $100 million leading manufacturer of large format scanners. She was an investor and director of Deer Cape Performance Apparel and Tea Forte, a luxury tea brand. She has also written articles, essays, and short stories, which appear at windystreet.com and have been published in VentureBeat, CEO World Magazine, Antioch Review, Bellevue Library, and numerous other journals. She holds a BA from Brown in math and in music and an MS from MIT in mechanical engineering. So, Marina, quite a resume. I'll pose the same question to you. Why Greece?
Yeah, so I grew up in Boston to Greek parents. So they came over for college, but we spoke Greek in the house, and we summered every year in Greece. So I had a lot of comfort level with Greece, but I viewed it through a certain lens. So and my father was an entrepreneur, and he actually tried to establish a presence in Greece. Our Greek identity was something that was very strong growing up. And my dad tried to actually establish a business in Greece back in the 70s for making microphones, but just had difficulty with the labor laws back then. And I have to say, growing up in the 70s in Greece, you know, my perspective was, wow, you know, I would just never do business in Greece. I love Greece. This is a beautiful place, but just would not want to do business here. And wow, how the world has shifted. And so for me personally, what happened was I took a business trip with the governor of Massachusetts to Israel, of all places, and was introduced to the ecosystem there. And I was blown away by what's happening in Israel. And what really struck me was, why couldn't this happen in Greece? I mean, we have talent. That has been obvious because the presence of Greeks is so disproportionate. When you walk down the halls of MIT, you know, every other name ends in Opoulos. And so, you know, it just kind of like the light bulb went off for me, and totally coincidentally, Vasilis Papakonstantinou, who is here today from MIT Enterprise Forum Greece, reached out to have me participate in one of their conferences. And it introduced me to this whole world that I didn't realize had come as an outgrowth, really, of the economic crisis, of Greeks kind of forging their own path and making their own destiny, because there were no jobs at that time. Youth unemployment was over 50% during the peak. And so these Greek entrepreneurs said, let's just do our own thing. And what was so amazing to me, I was already angel investing here in the US, but starting to look at Greek startups was fascinating, because these teams were operating on a shoestring budget, very early stage, but they had great technology and they had really large teams, because, you know, they were able to pull these teams together in an environment at that time of such high unemployment. It was really interesting to see the difference between, you know, an early startup here that might have one or maybe two people, and in Greece, you might have 10 people on a starting team. So it was kind of interesting to see that take place. And I have to say, ever since Vasily got me involved, it's just been amazing to see this whole ecosystem blossom and bloom, and where, nobody used to have this as an aspiration. Now you hear about it all the time, that people want to do a startup and they're just looking for good ideas, and funding is now available. So that whole ecosystem is starting to develop.
Do you think Greece can be the next Israel?
Absolutely. If you talk to people from Israel who are very familiar with that whole startup ecosystem, and they describe what it was like 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, it takes time, but they have come such a long way in that period of time. So absolutely, we have all the core fundamentals to build a very strong startup ecosystem, the chief of which is the Greek culture, the sense of independent thinking. People don't need rules. They don't need guidebooks. It's so evident in everything that you see when you're in Greece, that sort of entrepreneurial spirit lives. And you see it with the Greeks that come abroad to the US. They are disproportionately represented in entrepreneurship here in the US.
I'll thank you, Marina, for that insight. I'd like to throw my next question out to the entire panel, to whoever wants to answer it. And Consul General Koutras, if you'd care to chime in as well, because my question is less an entrepreneurial one and more of a societal one. And you did talk about social cohesion. When Prime Minister Mitsotakis came to the US in September, I believe it was, of 2019, and he sat on a panel. He was interviewed by Ambassador Nicholas Burns at the Council on Foreign Relations here in New York. And I was fortunate enough to able to ask the Prime Minister a question. And my question was about the brain drain in Greece, about so many young, educated people, including members of my own family, who get their university education and then do not find the job opportunities in Greece. And he gave me a very heartfelt and a 6-minute answer. And I was really blown away by how much this subject was of importance to him. What can be done? Is there enough economic activity of the type that all of you are involved in to affect this brain drain and actually reverse it and give the university educated in Greece the opportunities that they need? And I throw that open to any of the panelists.
If you want, I can start to answer, John, because I think that especially from our case in Pfizer, this was something that we went through. So because I would say the great thing, I would say, was that when we decided to be here, we received a lot of requests from talents from Greek that went away during the crisis that in Greece there was for 10 years. So I can say that now in our hub, we have more or less 30, 40 people coming from abroad. So they studied here, they grow up here, and then they went away for better opportunities. But then they came back when they found this opportunity for Pfizer. So we have people from US coming back, from Netherlands, from Germany, from UK. So I think that this is really a great thing, because they were searching for this type of opportunity. And I think that the fact that the government in Greece is supporting, I would say, these investments, and also through all these, the good politics, that the good policies that they are doing is pushing this, I would say, this effect to come back to Greece. So this is our experience in Pfizer.
And how many people does Pfizer employ in Greece right now?
In Greece total, I would say that we have 250 people for the hub, the digital hub. But then we have the second one that is the GBS hub, so it's more an internal service hub that if more or less there are 100 people. And then we have also people in the commercial organization that should be, if I'm not wrong, 250, something like that. But also there is a plan for further investing and hiring, especially in the new 2 hubs that we opened.
And so Marina or Yorgos, several hundred people, how many operations are there in Greece right now that of high technology companies that are employing several hundred people? Do you know?
I don't know that number, but just to add on your original question about the brain drain, I think this becomes self-fulfilling. The more opportunities there are in a range of size, both startup as well as large enterprise, it's that sort of opportunity that will bring people, because someone may say, well, I was given this great job opportunity in Athens, but I don't want to move my whole family and cause this huge commotion. If that one job doesn't work out and there are no other jobs available, that doesn't make sense. And so I think that brain drain will become sort of exponential as the startup ecosystem and enterprises also invest in Greece and build up those job opportunities. People don't want to move their whole life for one job opportunity. They want to know that there are a plethora of opportunities.
So you do think it is reversible?
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, Yorgos, we interrupted you.
I was trying to count the companies that I know that are, as you asked, in the hundreds. So there are probably 10 or 15 roughly that employ engineering or scientific talent in the hundreds. But there are more in the tens of employees.
Mm-hmm.
And to answer your question, are they enough? No, they're not enough today. We need more. We need more, and this is the effort that we're making right now to make the global ecosystem aware of the potential in Greece. If we look at the numbers a little bit, we probably lost something like 500,000 people during the financial crisis. This is pretty much the toll of the brain drain. And to give you another data point, we have somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 graduates per year in the core high-tech curricula that at least I'm monitoring for my company. This includes electrical engineers, computer scientists, physicists, mathematicians, and similar specialties. So if you look at the supply and you look also at the brain drain, to answer your question, it will take time. It will take time to fill that gap that was created during the financial crisis, and also to fuel the potential growth that might start with investments like the ones that I'm referring to. The truth is that those who have already invested have reaped amazing benefits. They do see that the talent is amazing. They do see that the skill set is world-class, and they are always growing the team. So we haven't seen anyone coming into Greece and maybe 3-4 years later abandon the country and leave. So that hasn't happened. What we have seen constantly is that when a company comes in, they just grow and grow and grow. So the ecosystem relies on these larger entities, the investments by Pfizer, by my company Ansys, by Microsoft, by Nokia, by other companies that came in the past decade, are important pillars of the ecosystem. Because we have to admit that to some extent they act as schools, as post-grad schools for many of our employees. And this is how startups are being then fueled, because there is an ecosystem. And when we say ecosystem, we have to think of every pillar of that ecosystem. So companies of this size are important, and hopefully more and more will see the opportunity and will come in.
And it sounds as if Pfizer has had a very good experience with their efforts and even getting people to come back. I've just been posed a question by one of our listeners, one of our viewers, Leo Konstantinos from Houston and Athens, and he says, the brain drain is no accident. The politics of Greece have been causing it for at least 60 years. High taxes and regulations suffocate most business activity. But as we heard from the Consul General, there is now a concerted effort to reverse that. How would our panelists assess that effort? How is it dealing with the Greek bureaucracy? How is it starting a business in Greece right now? Marina, Yorgos?
Marina, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start because your answer is going to be more substantive since you've actually started a business in Greece. But I will say that the new government has done a lot to try to change legislation for the better for startups. So taxes, corporate taxes, payroll taxes, taxes for angel investment. There's been a lot of effort for stock options, restricted share units, but there's still a lot more to go. And so I think they're aware of that, and I think they're working on that. So I wouldn't say the job is done, but clearly this is an administration where, you know, the prime minister was a venture capitalist, so he gets it. He understands that investment is required to nurture startups toward growth. And so I think, you know, in a couple of years, we will see the impact of the legislation that's already taken place. And hopefully we'll see sort of even more legislation, particularly like in the justice and legal side.
And Yorgos, what's your impression of starting up and dealing with red tape to the extent there is as much as there used to be?
The difference between 2000, 2010 and today is huge. The improvement is unbelievable. So today, no one should complain about the difficulty or non-difficulty of starting a company in Greece. That's easy. That's easy. So that has been remedied, and I would say that there is nothing to be jealous about from any other jurisdiction. Now, the problem is now in the details, and Marina alluded to that. It's not enough to make it easy to start the company. That was step one. Then we have another 100 steps that have to be taken. So legislation about, you know, the corporate entities and what we call the corporate law is very important to be improved. Steps have been taken. We have to be mindful that this is always relative. So it's not enough to, let's say, imitate what was happening in Delaware 20 years ago. It's always relative, and it's relative to your competitors as well. So we have to look at how the rest of the EU countries are moving on that front and how they improve their corporate laws to make them attractive. So first of all, we have to fix simple things like how we issue shares and how we understand stock options and how we treat them from a tax perspective. You know, things like that this is a pretty common subject, but that's not the only one. But as Marina pointed out, there are a lot of improvements that took place the past 4 or 5 years, even before this government. And there are a lot of things that this government is doing in a fast track mode. But as I said, starting the company has become easy. Now we have to look into what else has to be there to make Greece an attractive venue, not only to start a subsidiary of a multinational, but to start from Greece and branch out from Greece and make Greece the headquarters. And that's a different story. And there is a lot of detail in this question.
All right, that's an excellent question. So I think I'm going to pose it back to all of the panelists because it's an excellent question. Let me start with Nico, if I can, because Yorgos mentioned the large companies. How closely is Pfizer monitoring the success of your project in Greece? And what kind of internal discussions might you be able to share with us about possibilities of expanding that? Let's try to get to this idea that Yorgos brought up. What is needed to accelerate all of these trends?
I would say that the discussions that we are having internally, I would say, about the outcome of these projects are really positive. So considering also the quickness with which we made it, because as I said, we started last year, and in more or less 13 months, we hired 250 people. So we typed up also the operating model of the digital hub, and we started to work with all of them. So I would say from this perspective, we did really a lot of things. Also, we are now in a temporary space here in this office, but very soon we will open also the permanent site that it will be a great, I would say, office for all of our colleagues. So from our perspective, the results are really good. So we are measuring this for sure in the way that I'm telling to you about numbers, but also about the quality of the people that we hired. So we are hiring really very good talents. We are also hiring in a very cutting edge technology capabilities, because we are hiring for artificial intelligence, data scientists, colleagues, software. So I would say these are all the cutting edge technologies capabilities that one digital hub should have. So I would say in general, really the feedback that I'm receiving, especially from the global organization, are really, really good. And also I would say, considering that we did this, as we commented before, we started at the beginning of the pandemic, and now we are here after 13 months.
All right. Marina, what is needed to accelerate the trends we've been talking about?
Specifically from the government's perspective?
Well, in general, I mean, we're talking about how Greece has so much potential, that it has the educated people it needs to staff these new businesses. What is still needs to be done to have Greece propel itself forward?
Well, I think one of the biggest opportunities that will take time to develop is the deep tech. So Greece has done a pretty good job of finding startup opportunities in technology, but things that can be done fairly quickly. But deep technology is like core research that's happening at universities and research centers that takes many years to develop and large investment. It requires patient capital. And to me, that is the real opportunity for Greece. But, you know, this will take 20 years to really develop and show a lot of exits and commercialization. But that's where there's the highest value add. And to the point, you know, of like, where does Greece shine? It's really the deeper and deeper you get, that's where there can be greater value and greater value creation. And a distinction of Greece is, you know, Greece isn't going to be the India, you know, providing cheap labor. It's about higher value add. And so I think that's where the opportunity is. But as I say, that's going to take time to develop.
And Yorgos, I'll throw your question back at you. What still needs to be done?
A lot of things have to be done. I believe we should focus on building the full ecosystem. And the full ecosystem requires every player, every actor. We need multinationals like the ones that we represent here today. We need investment in startups because this will fuel growth later on. These are the companies that will be acquired, will create value and wealth that will be reinvested in the ecosystem. We need to build the proper bonds with academia. This has been kind of a broken bond for decades. There wasn't really a connection, a true connection between academic institutions and industry. This has improved substantially the past, I would say, 7-8 years. The crisis was a trigger event for that. We also need to make a lot of things friendly with the government. A lot of improvements took place. Actually, in certain categories, we are even better than most state-of-the-art jurisdictions globally. For example, there are many things you can do online in Greece that you cannot do in the US. So there are plenty of things as we interface the Greek administration that has improved substantially, but still there are things that can be improved further. The infrastructure projects that the General Consul referred to earlier are also very important. For example, there's no reason why we shouldn't have employees in every beautiful part of our country from the islands all the way to Macedonia or Thrace or Crete. So we can find a lot of opportunities if we build the infrastructure related to networks and 5G and soon, I believe, 6G coverage. So all these will contribute to building a fertile environment and will start growing the pillars of the ecosystem. And they all have to come together in concert. Also, we have to monitor carefully what is our competition. I'll give you a couple of examples. I happen to be in a lot of discussions that officials in Greece were doing as they were trying to put together plans and proposals for the government. And they typically miss to monitor competing jurisdictions and competing ecosystems. I'm referring both to EU countries of the size of Greece, to major economies in Europe, but also to global economies that compete in the same arena. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was watching the incentives that the New York State was providing for similar reasons to attract multinationals and startups, and they were unbelievable. And we had in Greece to be mindful about that. You know, we couldn't ignore incentives that come even from the state of New York, because we are competing in the same arena. Similarly, we should take into account incentives that are provided in Bulgaria, in Slovenia, in the Czech Republic, in Belgium, in Denmark. All these are countries that compete for the same business. So we have to build the ecosystem. We have to be mindful about what is a true incentive, and we have to bring to surface what is very unique about Greece. And there are a lot of things that are unique. Talent is number one. The beauty, the nature is number two. We have this God-blessed piece of real estate, and also the culture. Marina and I believe Nico alluded to that. We have a very unique social fabric that is beneficial for business. Let's not forget that in a country of 10 million people, I believe we have more than 700,000 tax IDs. So culturally, just culturally, this says something. Mm-hmm. So this is what I feel about how we should look at the ecosystem and how we should look at making the ecosystem attractive.
Let's turn to the U.S. Perspective on this. So let me begin with Silicon Valley. How much on the radar screen do you think Greece is among the Silicon Valley investment community, or any investment community here in the U.S.? And what can be done to improve that? Is Greece top of mind yet?
Let me go to the extreme. In 2010, when I said to someone here in the Bay Area that I was representing a tech company from Greece, they were joking with me about Spanakopita and Mykonos and the Acropolis. You know, they had no idea that something like a tech company could spring out of Athens. Today is much different. There are a lot of VCs that have visited Greece. The Greek venture capitalists have partnered with VCs here in the Bay Area, and they have made investments. So I would say Greece today indeed is in the radar screen of many of the major venture capital firms here in the Bay Area. Are they looking at Greece as the primary place? No. But the country and the ecosystem, just because we have now 400 or 500 startup companies, is in the radar screen, and people are talking about it. Definitely.
All right, so the buzz is there. Is that your impression as well, Marina?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a friend at Bain Capital who's invested in a couple of Greek companies, but it's more the exception. I mean, it's not like everyone is out there looking for the next Greek startup, but I think they get that there are definitely opportunities there.
We have a question from the audience from Elpida Zorzatos. How can we, the Greeks of the diaspora and the technology industry, help? Are there resources we can utilize to get involved and help strengthen Greece's position as a technology hub? That's a very interesting question. What can we in the diaspora do?
So I would love to field that. I've been working closely with MIT Enterprise Forum Greece ever since they brought me to see the startup ecosystem in Greece. And we have developed an outgrowth of that called the Hellenic Innovation Network. And what that does, the motivation is to accelerate technological innovation by building a bridge to the diaspora. So we do a bunch of things. First of all, we're at hellenic.org, so you can go there to register. And then there's a virtual network, so you can see all the other people that have registered, and you can do a filter by industry, so you can find relevant people. If you're a Greek entrepreneur and you're looking to expand to Boston in biotech, ideally you can do that filter and find the right person who can kind of give you a helping hand. We disseminate startup news happening in Greece to educate the diaspora. We broadcast educational webcasts, which interestingly are attended 50-50 by those in the US and those in Greece. So they serve as educational forum for the Greeks in Greece looking to expand, as well as for the Greek Americans in the States to hear pitches from Greek startups, hear what's happening there. And then we have a CEO group, which meets monthly of Greeks in technology. And we host in-person pitching and networking events at MIT, at the Greek consulate, and elsewhere. And it's that sort of in-person community building that we hope in particular will help people to forge those connections. One thing you see, if you're in a startup hub like Silicon Valley or Boston, and you happen to start up a business, very quickly, you can get connected to this huge, rich network of customers, suppliers, investors, board members, mentors, other entrepreneurs. And so what we're trying to do is provide access to that very rich ecosystem here in Boston, in New York, even in Silicon Valley, to those Greek entrepreneurs so that they can be connected to that network.
I have a proposal for the diaspora, John. They should join boards. They should get board seats in these companies that spring out of Athens, out of Greece. This is what is needed so desperately. That's an easy way because you can do that remotely. Now we can hold board meetings virtually, remotely. That's easy. It's usually once a quarter, and it's so valuable. So companies in Greece need that desperately. So please offer yourselves to be members of boards and help CEOs and help entrepreneurs steer the companies properly.
All right, those are some great resources. Let me move on to a question for Nico. And you strike me as the very epitome of the modern European citizen operating cross-border. What role does Greece's status as an EU country play in its economic success, and how has that developed and expanded over the past few years?
So please I would rephrase. So can you please repeat, John? Sorry, just for being sure that I understood correctly.
So what role does Greece's status as a European Union country play in Pfizer's decision to move there, and how has that integration helped to advance Greece's economy?
So I would say it was a major role. So for sure, as I said, one of the most important thing for us for deciding to invest here was for sure the environment that we found. So I would say that really, in general, I think Greece is becoming always more attractive. So I was reading also some time ago a document about Europe attractiveness survey. This was done by EY, and also I would say the perception is really changing. So there are, especially during this research that I read, so all the investors said that the perception has really changed after these 10 years dramatically. So I would say most of them, 40% of them said that this perception has changed. Even more, 70% of them said that this would even increase in the next 3 years. And also I would say 25% of them said that they would invest even this year in Greece. So I would say really the work that the state is doing is really good from this perspective, because we are really assisting to a great acceleration of investment from abroad here in Greece. And this also was, as I said, one of the main reasons why we decided to be here. So support for this type of investments, creation, also starting to create this ecosystem, the fact that also I would say there is this environment of startup incubators, and also I would say this is something that has always been in Greece. So as we also other colleagues commented, this talent pool, the universities, so especially also here in Thessaloniki, we have Aristotle University, Macedonian University. So these are all conditions that attracted us to be here. So I think that this is that work that was done during the last years for attracting this kind of investments. I don't know if this answers to your question, John.
Oh, I think it does. Any other thoughts on the EU? All right, let me move on to another question from a viewer. Penelope Salmons requests, has there been a study that attempted to review the market segmentation in Greece, specifically strengths and weaknesses of ecosystems for each industry? So we've been talking about tech in general, but let's try to focus down on specific industries. Yorgos, do you have any thoughts as to what specifically is suited to Greece? And has there been that kind of analysis that Penelope is asking about?
There were a lot of attempts to address that question, mostly, I would say, between 2008 and 2012. I believe there are more coming out now and probably in the future. The thing is that we never had enough substance, enough mass to get meaningful results. Everything was in infancy. And as we were trying to assess what is missing, unfortunately, that was overwhelming. So to answer that question, the answer is, I don't believe we have systematic, deep and thorough analysis per industry. Now, in certain silos like pharmaceuticals, that is well-founded and has developed substantially in Greece, there is definitely more substance to measure and collect data and understand, the global placement, the global positioning of that in Greece related to the world business. In tech, again, we have data, but still the ecosystem is in its infancy. So we don't have that substance that can provide data to help us draw conclusions. The thing is that we always identify in these reports, complete or incomplete, we identify a gap between industry and academia. Marina alluded to that earlier. We don't have that many research labs connected to industrial efforts and vice versa. So this is definitely a gap that has been identified several times. But in terms of strengths and weaknesses, the major strength that we always identify is the supply of world-class talent. That's always a given, but in quantities that cannot compete, for example, with India and China. So we do have talent, for example, in EE and engineering in general, physics and math and computer science, but we cannot compete with the supply center. The supply centers in India. I had a friend here. He was working for one of the biggest semiconductor companies, and he told me, we have a business plan. We need to source 15,000 people of a specific skill set. And the only place to do that was either Shanghai or India, Bangalore. And this is what they did. So we can supply talent, and we have an edge in specific areas, because this is what we teach in the Greek universities, but we cannot do everything, and unfortunately, we don't have studies for everything.
Marina, any thoughts on that?
Well, just one thought, which I was on a panel earlier today asking a group of VCs where they saw the most opportunity. There we were talking about tech transfer, so the more deeper tech. And the resounding answer was life science. So this isn't a study, but this is just anecdotal evidence from earlier today. So a lot of the funds have invested a substantial amount of their fund in life science.
Let me throw a curveball at all of you. From the US perspective, China is increasingly seen as an adversary. What role does Chinese investment and Chinese money play in Greece right now? Any thoughts on that? Is it substantial? How substantial is the Chinese investment? We've heard about several projects, not necessarily in the technology field, but related to the port of Piraeus, I believe, and others. Is China a big player in Greece? All right, perhaps it's not the field of expertise.
I don't know. I haven't seen presence at sort of, so I haven't seen the impact if they are investing in Greek startups.
Yeah, John, to be fair, from the private sector point of view, that's pretty limited. I am aware of certain attempts, but I'm not the expert. But from the public sector, that's a very different story. I don't know if the General Counsel can make a comment on that. I don't have intimate knowledge. Just by reading the papers, we know that there is a substantial investment in infrastructure that took place a few years back, and that continues. And I also I'm aware of a lot of discussions that have taken place, but as I said, in the private sector is pretty limited.
Exactly. As Yorgos said, the investment in the private sector in the tech company, I'm not aware at all if there is any. As regards the port of Piraeus, indeed, there is a big investment several years back, and but we don't have anything new for the time being.
All right, thank you, Consul General and panelists. Let me move on to another question here, and it has to do about filmmaking in Greece. So I don't know how much this might be on your radar screen, but James writes, CelebrateGreece.com has been involved in documentaries and movies in Greece for the last 20 years. They're from Southern California, which is another sunny area like Greece, which is very suited to filmmaking because of the climate. And the question is, how does the future look for filmmaking in Greece? Is that something that's on any of your radar screens?
Not on mine.
If you allow me, I would say that would be excellent, because we have many US companies now making their footages in Greece. We have a lot of, just to mention, last week, Daniel Craig was at our consulate in order to get a visa. You have seen that, huh?
Yes. I'll give you a call later.
Yes, okay. And there are some very good incentives to do that for film companies, and we are pretty optimistic for that.
All right, wonderful. Moving on to another question, and this ties into some of what we've discussed, and specifically the comment by the Consul General that the money is there, at least from the public sector and from the EU, to facilitate investments in Greece. Babis Bakolias writes, would government incentives for R&D jobs attract more interest from multinationals to the country? So let me start, if I could, with Nico. What role do the government incentives and the EU funding play for a large company like Pfizer? And then maybe we can talk to the other panelists as well about this.
From my side, I would say we are still not, I would say, I'm referring more to the digital hub, so more than Pfizer in general. So for now, we are still evaluating this opportunity because, as you can imagine, we just started our activities 12 months ago. This is a great opportunity because I'm looking to some proposal, but we are still not, I would say, entering in this type of initiative. So as I said, they are really good. They appear very good opportunity, but still to be evaluated for us in the next future. So for now, this is what we are doing. I'm sorry that I cannot give more details, but we are, as I said, we are still in this phase now of hiring and setting the operating model.
Well, no, that was a very informative answer, and it's very interesting that you are evaluating different proposals. Yorgos, we've heard the money is there. What does that mean to you?
A lot. So just briefly to answer your question, definitely the incentives are a plus. They correct a little bit some distortion, for example, that comes from employers' burden. We do pay significant amounts per employee as employers. So incentives of that kind correct a little bit that distortion. They also become incentives because the net payment to employees is higher, so companies can actually raise salaries because of that. Overall, it's a plus and definitely can help and can improve the attractiveness. Now, to go back to the other question, the money is there. It's true that the amount earmarked for Greece is unbelievable compared to everything else that has happened the past several years. That's the public sector investment. The other thing that is also significant for Greece is the private investment earmarked for startups and for investments in high growth companies. This is also new, and we didn't have, let's say, €500 million earmarked for investments a decade ago, which is a reality today. So the two of them together combined will make a difference. And going back to the other question you made earlier, whether we could imitate or follow certain models from Israel, the answer is if we leverage these two, the public funding with the private funding that has already been earmarked, definitely that can help make a difference and help the ecosystem grow.
Any other
John,
thoughts? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, John, if I may, I just wanted to mention something that came up a moment ago. The question about film production in Greece was a timely one because HACC is actually working on putting together an event on specifically that. So film production in Greece and how the Greek government is looking to grow that industry there. And so please, to everybody watching, please keep an eye on that in the coming months for that event. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Athos. So we've heard a lot about going from local to global. In other words, going from a small startup to growing large. And then there's the other issue of global companies investing locally. Is one of those more suited to Greece, or is it that Greece needs to pursue both of those strategies?
If I may take this one, John, the answer is definitely both, because the one cannot survive without the other. There was some cultural tendency the past couple of decades. People were looking, when they started the company, they were thinking of Greece as the only market, which of course was wrong from the get-go. And gradually, especially the past 5 years, all the startups realized that it's only one option. It's only the global market that they should be after. And Greece is part of the global market. That's easy. So if we look at Greece as the venue to start a company addressing the global market, that's definitely the recipe that can help fuel growth and can help attract investment. At the same time, the efforts from our companies are also important because they contribute to the ecosystem. They contribute because we employ scientists, we employ engineers, that at some point in their careers might choose to become members of startup endeavors. And this is what fuels further the growth pattern. So we need both.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, if you look at any successful startup hub, whether it's Boston, New York, Silicon Valley, it all starts with a cluster, universities where you have research and talent. But then a key component of any of those startup hubs is large enterprise as well as other startups. And that provides several different things. The large enterprise provides learning and best practice for young people before they go and do their startups. It provides seasoned executives who can act as mentors and board members for those startups. And then a rich ecosystem of other startups allows entrepreneurs to get advice from each other. And then when there's an exit, those exited entrepreneurs typically will invest in other startups, or they might start up their own company and then hire other people. So all of this becomes self-fulfilling, and it's all key to generating a real startup hub. So definitely you need both.
So we have another question from Penelope Salmons. Is there an effort to create incubators?
Yes, there is. There are a lot of incubators and accelerators. MIT Enterprise Forum Greece does a fabulous job. I'm also on the board of the Egg out of Eurobank, which does a great job. And each one of these, you know, there are a whole host of them all over the country. And interestingly, with COVID, you know, it's shifted the dynamic a little bit where physical proximity isn't as critical. But they're all doing great work, and each one is slightly different in terms of what they offer.
And who is this going to be, to what extent might this be generated from Greece? Who is the next Steve Jobs or the next Bill Gates or the next Hewlett and Packard who build their company in a garage? Is that person coming from Greece, or is this modern day very different where you have venture capitalists funding it from Silicon Valley?
I would say we have plenty of candidates. Definitely, John. I strongly believe that might be the case very soon. There is no reason why not to. And the good news is that we have companies who started in Greece, attracting serious investments to compete in the global arena. So that's why I'm seriously now, I'm not joking. We can definitely see companies of the likes of the ones that you mentioned being built out of Greece. Not necessarily this year, but definitely at the decade looking ahead. There is no reason not to. Let's put it that way.
All right, I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to sort of wrap up and tell us where you think things are headed, and maybe tell us where you yourselves are headed individually in your efforts. But before I do that, there's one question that I always ask at the end of all of my interviews, and that's, are there any questions that I should have asked you that I haven't?
Plenty.
Well, Yorgos, perhaps you could address some of those in a closing remarks and let us know where things are headed.
Yes, let me speak for a few seconds about my company. So with Ansys, we have a plan to invest even more in our R&D team in Greece. We are trying to find very scarce talent, scarce globally, not only in Greece, for certain functions in our company. And we intend to grow the team at least by another 100 people in the next few years, and probably even more. We'll see how it goes. There are also other functions of the company that we also consider growing in Greece in R&D as well. As you mentioned earlier, we are a simulation company, so we address a very broad application spectrum in technology. Now, as related to the ecosystem, I am very optimistic. I believe that in the past 2 or 3 years, a lot of significant things have taken place that will fuel growth, will change the derivative substantially. So we will see a lot of startups, new startups being founded. We'll see significant investment being attracted. The fact that we have very active venture capitalists in Athens today is a very important part of the ecosystem, because they become the prime investors that lead the investment rounds, and they attract other VCs from abroad. This is how the Greek ecosystem has become part of the radar screen here in the US. And I also see a lot of improvement coming out of the connection, the bond between academia and industry. This is improving as we speak. So I expect a lot of things to come from research, core research that will take place in Greece and will help fuel growth globally.
All right, thank you. Nico, where
Yes.
is Pfizer hoping to develop, and where are you hoping to go, and what do you see for the future?
I would say, thanks for the question. So first of all, my summary of this experience until now, it's really positive. So this is really something that we are experiencing. And as I said, all the reasons that took us here have been really strongly confirmed. And this is also taking us to the, I would say, second question. So we have planned for still hiring this year. So I would say for the digital hub, the idea is achieving 300 people by this year. So this is the plan. And also, I would agree also with Yorgo. So I really would like also in the next future, making this connection with the academia, with the research centers, because for me also, I would say making innovation, it's also being opened to this ecosystem. So for sure, this could be beneficial for every one of us. So in the next future, I can see, as I said, still continue to hire these capabilities that are really important for our company to continue to make innovation and also to be connected with the ecosystem. So this is our plan for the next future.
All right, wonderful. Marina, where are we all heading, and where are you heading?
Well, so relative to myself personally, as well as to the organization, Hellenic Innovation Network, I think our challenge will be to grow in parallel with the Greek startup ecosystem. And so as these startups begin to go global and establish presence in the United States, to the extent that we can help enable that transition and figure out what these startups need to make that transition easier, whether that's space, access to venture capital, local venture capital here, whatever it is, we're just figuring it out along with the startups, how we can best help the startups in the diaspora. So, that's the next step, figuring that out.
All right. Well, I wish you all luck and success with your ventures, and of course, we wish the same for Greece and for its progress. And I'd like to thank each of you for being such great guests today and giving us so much insight. And Dr. Koutras, thank you so much for your sponsorship and for spending time and even taking a couple of curveball questions from me. We're very fortunate to have you here in New York with us, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, John. I couldn't have been more optimistic after today's event.
Well,
thank you, everyone.
I think we accomplished that, and I'm John Metaxas. So that about wraps things up. If anybody did not get their question asked, I apologize. I tried to go through all the chats and get to most of them. Are we giving it back to Hacc now, or are we saying goodbye?
Well, I just would like to say quickly, thank you again to everyone. John, thanks very much for stimulating such an excellent discussion. Consul General, thank you for your participation and your comments. The efforts of Greece, of the Greek government to stimulate and foster an environment for startups and the tech industry is very exciting, and it's really a fresh air for the entire industry. And thank you very much for our panel for just being excellent panelists and really communicating so wonderfully the state of affairs the current state of affairs and where it's going in Greece. And it was an excellent effort on everyone's part. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.